Postseason basketball is here, but how many games do the Auburn Tigers need to win in Nashville to keep the party going? Midweek Report brought to you by our friends at the Rage Room. If you're in the Auburn Opelika area, visit 1510 Second Ave, Opelika, Alabama. If you're in the Birmingham area, 2616 7th Ave, Birmingham. They got axe throwing up at Birmingham. So, look, it's going to be lots of frustration come tournament time. You can get your frustration out with our friends at the Rage Room. Guys, join the greatest Auburn community online by hitting that join button. $5.99 a month will get you there. We're on the road this basketball season. We'll be in Nashville in a couple days. Also, we are traveling to the first round, and should Auburn make it, to Atlanta, and then eventually San Antonio, God willing. You can help keep that work going by hitting that join button. You can also give the gift of the war report by hitting that gifted membership button. See if we can get 20 memberships given away today. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Sports. New customers can deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash with our friends at Underdog Sports. Just download the app and use code REPORT to make sure you take advantage of what they got going on there. Put your entry in, pick higher or lower on two players, and bam, you got a chance to win big-time cash. Also want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, bammers, whatever is ailing you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Again, rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off. Jumping in with me today is my good friend Darrell Dapprich, college sports analyst extraordinaire. Midweek Report. Darrell, we're talking Auburn basketball. The Auburn Tigers have reached the postseason as the outright SEC champions. You and I have talked off camera about the significance of this outright championship. Got to put this in the rearview mirror, and you got to focus on what lies ahead, and that is the NCAA Tournament. That starts with Nashville. Look, they're not going to play for the first couple days, but before we get into talking about Auburn, I wanted to talk to you about what we will see the first couple days. First round, we've got Arkansas versus South Carolina, Texas versus Vanderbilt, LSU versus Mississippi State, and Oklahoma versus Georgia. That's day one of the SEC tournament tomorrow. Is there a sleeper in this bunch, in your opinion? I know much ado has been made about Arkansas. Texas has been a tough out for a lot of teams this year, and Georgia was seen to be kind of a fringe NCAA tournament bid kind of team on the bubble. What do you think here, man? Any sleepers in the first round for you?
Yeah, I had Arkansas as a sleeper even before this tournament started. I felt like they were starting to play really good basketball down the stretch. We saw them in Neville Arena play Auburn off its feet late.
We did.
They've got talent. Mike, you know it. There was a lot of NBA scouts at that game, and most of them were there to watch Arkansas players. Calipari seems to have them rounded into shape at the right time. They won some big games down the stretch. Then they blow that 21-point lead today to South Carolina and hang on. So I'm wondering if they're going to have enough to get by Ole Miss. When this tournament started, I fully expected Auburn to face Arkansas in its first game Friday, and I thought Arkansas would win today, win tomorrow. They've got so much talent, and they seem to be kind of figuring it out at the right time.
Yeah, when Auburn and Arkansas played, again, Big Z went 0 for 10 from the field, 0 for 9 from 3, if I remember correctly. It was a completely anomalous result, Darrell, something that probably won't happen again for the rest of his career. 0 for may not happen for the rest of his career. But Auburn was a beneficiary of that, and they snuck out with a win. But in today's SEC, with it being so tough, I think this might be the toughest tournament lineup we've ever actually seen. And because it's so tough, I think this might be the year we see a team come from the back of the pack to make it to that final game where everybody else has kind of locked up their destiny for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I said the same thing a couple days ago. First of all, when you expand the tournament from 16 to 18 teams and you add Texas and Oklahoma by default, it's going to be harder because there's a lot more teams. Number two, if you think about it, this has been a historically good year for the SEC. They had an incredible non-conference record, historic, the way they beat everybody. Then the season starts, and there's a lot of good teams. You got, 3 or 4 teams ranked in the top 10. You've got probably 3 or 4 teams that'll be in the top 2 seed lines. Well, what does that mean? That means they're all going to be in one place, in one city, in one court at the same time in Nashville. So, of course, it's going to be, I think, a legendary historical tournament because this is as good as the SEC's ever been. And now they're all at the same place playing against each other in a 4-day format. It's going to be incredible. It will be the best SEC tournament in the way of, I think, when you start getting to the rounds tomorrow, and some of these games are going to be really electric.
I just think it's funny that, look, at the end of the day, again, it's Wednesday, and so we did see Arkansas versus South Carolina today. That was game 1. The result of that game was Arkansas 72, South Carolina 68. South Carolina, kind of a revenge game for Arkansas, right? They got beat by 19 to South Carolina on the same day that Jay Williams was calling them the biggest sleeper in the history of college basketball. The Texas game, obviously, versus Vanderbilt, they eliminate Vanderbilt 79-72. And LSU has yet to play Mississippi State. Oklahoma versus Georgia also coming later tonight. So we'll see what happens there. But in the next round, Darrell, you've got Ole Miss versus Arkansas. Now we know Texas A&M is awaiting.
They get Texas.
No, they get Texas, right? Yeah. Missouri is awaiting the winner of LSU, Mississippi State, and Kentucky is awaiting a winner as well, too. I do want to talk about Kentucky real quick before we move on to Auburn. Is this Kentucky team dangerous in this tournament? I've got them as one of my sleepers to maybe, again, come from day 1, day 2 to make it to the SEC tournament final.
Yeah, you're picking my brain, man. Get out of my head. That's exactly who I picked as my sleeper or the most dangerous team. And the reason why I think Kentucky is so dangerous, Mike, is they are so unpredictable. They're a Jekyll and Hyde. First of all, we know they have talent. Even though Jackson Robinson's done for the year, and I think that's a big loss. They've beaten Duke. They've beaten Florida. They've swept Tennessee. But then they've also got swept by Alabama. They got boat raced by Auburn. They got beat by Vanderbilt. You don't know which team you're going to get, but if you get good Kentucky, hot Kentucky, they can beat anybody in this tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then there's the Auburn Tigers. They don't play till Friday. They are game 1 in the quarterfinals on Friday. They will await the winner of game 5, which will be Ole Miss or Arkansas. So one of those teams will have a chance at revenge at the Auburn Tigers. Look, today's show is about how many games does Auburn need to win in the SEC tournament. Look, you 30-pieced Ole Miss. Right. Like, I mean, that can't be stated enough. They sweeped the season series with Ole Miss, Darrell. And you kind of stole the win at home versus Arkansas. They had some anomalous results, but so did Auburn. Auburn missed some shots they normally make in that game as well, too. How likely is it that we see a repeat of that Auburn offensive performance versus Arkansas if they should so be the team that Auburn faces?
I think Auburn will have a better offensive performance. I think Auburn was pressing a little bit that night at Neville, and it's weird that some of their offensive outputs on the road have been better than they played at Neville, and it's that showtime. It's playing to that crowd. It's trying to do too much and give the fans their money's worth. Auburn's played really good on neutral floors and really good on the road. Neutral floor, undefeated. So they're playing on a neutral court in Nashville. They get Arkansas a second time or Ole Miss for a third time. I think if you get Arkansas, Mike, the fatigue factor is going to come into play. Arkansas will be playing its third game in 3 days. Auburn will be fresh as fresh can be. They'll be a little bit pissed for what happened last Saturday. I think they'll have a little edge to them. I fully expect either Arkansas or Ole Miss, Auburn to come out and play really well and have a good offensive performance based upon some of the things we're hearing about how focused they are about what happened last weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I expect them to be more focused. I expect Bruce Pearl to have a good message for his team headed into this one. Darrell, I think Auburn has to make it to Saturday, right? I hear me out here. Losing the last 2 games of the regular season, I thought they would split those games. Honestly, I thought they would beat A&M. Ike was worried about A&M, and I thought there was a chance that they would lose to Bama, given how well Alabama scores from the floor. Obviously, Mark Sears was a hero in that game, but losing your last 2 games, I think you got to win one. I think you have to get out of the first round here, because you've put yourself in a position where that number 1 overall seed is in a little question. It shouldn't be a question in my mind, no matter what happens, but you just never know with this committee, because the other team you're in contention with, you lost the head-to-head to that team. So I do think it's relevant, even though you played a much tougher schedule.
Yeah, I agree. You do not want to go into the NCAA tournament on a three-game losing streak. Sorry. I know this team's very confident, and I know they're very senior laden and they're very experienced, but I don't know how some self-doubt couldn't start to creep in a little bit if you lost 3 in a row. So I think you want to get those good vibes going again, those good feelings going again. And by winning at least 1 game, I think that does that. It kind of gets you back on that winning track. And then if you were to run into, Kentucky, you wouldn't play Kentucky. You would play Texas A&M or Tennessee. And if you were to run into them in the second round, as good as Tennessee has been playing, and Texas A&M, not that big of a deal. I do agree with you 100%. I think you have to win at least 1 game, get those good feelings going again, and then just move on to the second round. And I think that also wraps up the overall number 1 seed if you win that 1 game.
Yeah, you've got to get through this healthy as well, Darrell. Look, Denver Jones was not 100% for the Bama game. Bruce Pearl stated as much in the post-game press conference, but playing him underscored how much they wanted to win that game. I mean, they wanted to beat Bama. They wanted the season sweep. And it would have erased all doubt, any that existed, about whether or not you were the undisputed number 1 overall seed. But it's not just about the seeding. It's about what the seeding means in terms of where you go for the first round. It's widely believed, look, if you are the number 1 overall seed, you're playing in Lexington for round 1, Darrell. That is a dream for Auburn fans. If you made the trip to Spokane last year, I certainly did. Lexington this year is a blessing it is manna from heaven, Darrell, to play in Lexington. Now, the alternate site would be Raleigh, and I don't think that would be a bad draw for Auburn as well. I think it's pretty much a push in terms of distance, right? From
yeah,
Auburn.
It is. Here's the good news, though. I don't think it matters if Auburn gets the overall number 1 seed. I think even as the 2 seed, they're putting them in the South.
Okay.
I think Duke goes into the East regardless. I mean, that with that Raleigh and and I think it's New Jersey or something like that. So I believe you want the number 1 overall seed for bragging rights and as a badge. But I think even if Auburn was to be the number 2 overall seed in this NCAA tournament, I still think they put them in the South region.
Yeah. Darrell, look, going into the SEC tournament, again, it's a good opportunity to stay warm, create some momentum, head into the NCAA tournament. They want to win it, and if they can, they will. But certainly your dreams are much bigger than what the SEC tournament has to offer. As the champion, you can't even move a seed line, right? Like, so, and we've seen that year after year. If you're on the bubble, you could win the whole thing and still get left out of the tournament. That happened to Texas A&M a few years ago. Auburn romped through the SEC tournament and couldn't move 1 seed line. So they've got to find a way, I think, to make these conference tournaments more relevant. The Big 12 moved their conference championship game to Saturday.
That's what you have to do. Yeah. That's what you have to do. That's exactly, that's the play. Yeah, I think so, because I don't care what they say. That committee has the seeding, in my opinion, pretty much wrapped up Saturday night. They have to because of the schedule. So when you're playing Sunday at 2 and the selection shows at 6, that's pushing it way too close. I think they need to go ahead and do some sort of format where they perhaps start the tournament on Tuesday and get this thing wrapped up by Saturday evening because it doesn't matter. Auburn's not moved a seed line in either tournaments they won in 2019 or last year. They were still the same seed line they were when they went into the tournament. I think, like you mentioned, the Texas A&M's example is the perfect example. They need to matter. Conference tournaments need to matter, and they need to make a difference in seed lines and getting into the tournament. Even if you don't win it and you get to the championship game and you make a run, that should matter for something. So I think they need to do something, and they need to change it. And I do like the double bye. I don't want to eliminate that, but maybe start it a night earlier.
Yeah. Make conference tournaments great again. I am on board. Make it a T-shirt. Look, Auburn needs good vibes, and so do you. So if you're in the Phoenix City area, visit our friends at the Vibe Vault. This show is brought to you by our friends at the Vibe Vault. If you are in the area looking for a good haircut, my guy Steve over there at the Vibe Vault has you covered. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite I, Phoenix City, Alabama. The Vibe Vault, that's right off 431 across from Chattahoochee Valley Community College. This is a nice barber shop. I'm a little bougie when it comes to my barbers, Darrell. And if you're like me, the relationship between a man and his barber is sacred. Right?
It absolutely is, man.
You just get the beard cleaned up.
Man, I love them straight razor shaves from an old-time barber shop. There's nothing better. Hot towels. Woo.
Ooh, yeah, that's what they're doing. Good vibes at the Vibe Vault. Please go check them out there. I put the address on the screen. Over the next half, Darrell, I want to talk about Chad Baker-Mazara. You've been pretty open on social media about how you feel about what a lot have termed as his antics. Look, this is going to continue to be a topic of conversation until such a time as Auburn is not playing basketball and Chad Baker-Mazara has not been ejected from a game for extracurricular activity. Now, we all saw the elbow to the back of the head. We got reports that there was a player-only team meeting called where this was addressed, and the angle that they took to it was love and support.
Mm-hmm.
We can't win without you, and we need you on the court to do that. You cannot let the emotions get the best of you. Darrell, your father, right? And, I think one thing that a lot of young men need to learn is how to regulate their emotions in tough situations, right? And I think that's the message that they're trying to get through to Chad Baker. But, Jacob Goins said this. He said, we may be a better team with Chad Baker on the court, but are we a safer team with him on the court if this is happening? I want to give you the floor to share your thoughts on this and what you think Bruce Pearl needs to do to maybe rein this in a little bit and make sure that the focus is on basketball and not all this other stuff.
Well, it's funny because I did go on social media after one of the basketball games and put something that I actually took down later. Not because I always stand behind 100% of what I say. I say what I mean to mean what I say. But Tennessee and Alabama fans were jumping into that and really getting nasty and ugly. And I was like, I'm not going to let this be a platform for them to express their ignorance and their bias and their nastiness and borderline racist, some of the stuff that was coming through. So I took it down. But, my mantra is, and I've always said, two things can be true at once. We live in a world that everything has to be either or, black and white. So here's my take. And I went on a show this morning in Mobile and discussed this and got ripped as a Chad Baker-Mazara apologist because I can look at both sides of it. First of all, Auburn is a much better basketball team with Chad Baker-Mazara on the floor. There were a couple times earlier this year where he got hurt in tournaments, and you could tell a difference when he wasn't on the floor. So you need him on the floor. You absolutely do. What he gives you, you have to weigh the consequences or you have to weigh the benefit. And it's definitely more of a benefit to have him on the court. That being said, he is absolutely 100% going to get targeted. Any coach that is worth his salt is going to come after him, is going to entice him, is going to goad him. And if Chad Baker-Mazara responds and allows them to get in his head and gets emotional, because he plays his best, he is who he is by playing emotionally and playing right to the edge. That makes him a good player. But when he crosses that line, it hurts Auburn. It hurt him against Yale. It hurt him against Alabama. And let's be honest, it could have hurt him a couple other times where I felt like Auburn caught a break. If he can harness that and not retaliate, and whoever is trying to goad him into that, or that's the strategy, let them get the technical fouls. Let them be the ones that pick up the personal foul. I'm not concerned about the off-the-court stuff. I know this team's got great leaders in Cardwell, Broome, Denver Jones, but on the court, it is what Jacob Goins says is it's a gamble. It's a risk. You hope that the law of averages have caught up, and he went so long in between games with getting ejected that he could make it to the NCAA tournament, because they're going to come after him. There's a book on him. There's a way to play him, and everybody knows it, and it's gonna be visible how he responds to that. Now, Bruce Pearl can help manage that, Mike, but when he senses it or starts to get a feel, either call a timeout or get him off the floor for 3 or 4 minutes to let things cool down. And I think sometimes let him try to play through some of that kind of stuff, and it's backfired.
Yeah. Look, I agree with you 100% that coaches are going to target him, and they're going to direct their players to go right up to the line in terms of needling him to get him out of the game. Chad Baker, there was a sequence against Bama, and I think he was guarding Mark Sears. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Where he just decided, I'm not going to let you do anything.
Right.
And they turned the ball over, and he walked over to his bench as jacked up as I've ever seen any Auburn basketball player, and just locked him down, Darrell. It was a phenomenal show of defense. And at the end of it, you're thinking that's what he gives you. It's not just the points that he scores, it's the points that he doesn't allow the other team to score. So you're possibly plus a few points and minus a few points if he finishes out the game. Now, I think he had 4 personal fouls at the time that he fouled out. So he was in foul trouble near the end of the game, and it's possible he doesn't finish the game. But I agree with you. I think that if you're Bruce Pearl, you have to tell them, look, it's going to be a legitimate strategy that they're going to try to get under your skin and get you to react. You can't fall for it, right? And, to close, how do you get through to Chad Baker-Mazara, though? How do you get him to understand, like, look, man, when this happens, something's got to go off in your brain that says they're trying to do this. This is part of the game.
First of all, I don't want to come across as condoning a retaliatory action just because the other team. Okay, I get that. So I don't want that. I want that to come across that he's got to find a way. But I'm afraid, Mike, at this point, he just is who he is. I don't know if you can change that. You got to try to manage it, but I don't know if you can change who he is or how he reacts at this point in his career, at this point in the season. And I'll tell you something that might help is before the game starts, and I'm sure they do this. I've seen coaches do it. I think either Stephen Pearl or Bruce Pearl needs to go to whoever the officials are, because these will be different officials after this weekend. Now, when you get to the NCAA tournament, you might get some officials that don't have an inherent bias or knowledge or history of what Chad Baker-Mazara does. But you just go to that official and you say, look, I'm going to try to keep my guy in control. I'm going to give you my word that I will manage this. But please do me a favor and watch the stuff early on and how he gets, incited into this stuff. So I'll do my part. And I know, but you have got to watch closely, because not excusing it, not condoning it, but go back and watch what happened at Yale last year and how that dude kept coming down the court and the crap that he was doing. If you address that and you get that handled and you as an official take care of that, then Chad Baker-Mazara probably doesn't emotionally feel like he has to take care of it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
You mentioned on your post how fans were coming through and they were being, they were using it as a platform to attack him and say borderline racist things. We've said this on multiple live streams. I will tell you, the one thing that irks me is the word thug being used. That's
it. That's what was coming across over and over and over. And look, I have to be honest. I mean, when I see that, when I hear that, in the context that it was being used, it was very obvious, and so I shut that down. And
I appreciate that because most of the people using that word have never met an actual thug. Right, like
right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. When you meet a real thug, you'll know. And
well, I guess my question is,
Mike,
Mike, is when, and I don't want to make this a whole social show.
No,
but my point
it's
is,
okay.
you know, Hunter Dickinson at Kansas has done some really, really borderline egregious things, and I never saw anybody call him a thug.
Yeah. Look, I agree. You know, at the end of the day, if you're Chad Baker, I think there's culpability on both sides. You have to understand the microscope that you're under, but also I think you make a good point about Bruce Pearl going to the ref and saying, "Look, you know, I'll keep my guy under control, but don't miss the first thing." Because I'll tell you what, these crash outs that are happening, I mean, a lot of the people criticizing him on social media, they're crashing out in real life on McDonald's workers and gas station attendants. And they're not getting throat punched before their crash out or kidney punched before their crash out. So this is a physical game and emotions are at a high. And I do agree. I think that refs have a responsibility to keep the game under control by not missing the first action and saying, look, man, you know, it may be a strategy for you to try to get under his skin, but if you cross the line, we're going to get you too. You're out.
It's okay. It's okay if it's, you know, a little verbal smack talk, but we're seeing little elbows to the ribs and other stuff like that. So he needs to understand that if somebody says something to him or taunts him, he completely can't react. But it'd be nice to call it. When somebody crane kicks after a dunk, it'd be nice to call it. That's a taunt. That's a taunt. That is a taunt. I'm not saying that's why Auburn got beat. I'm not whining. That's a taunt. Call that crap both ways, because I've seen Auburn get teed up, Broom get teed up for verbally saying something, celebrating, right? It crossed the line, he gets teed up. That's all we're saying is address it on the front end, and you may not have to address it on the back end.
The back end, yeah. Let's get to some comments here before I let you go here and we get to the break. Auburn Dad for Life says, Youngblood targeted him again and got him to react. But I also saw them kick Broom when he went down to the ground on a rebound. I don't know if I saw this, but I believe him that it happened. Boycott Advertising says, how many teams in the SEC have won regular season and conference tournaments before? It's happened. It's happened in the last.
Alabama's done it twice in the last 5 or 6 years. It's difficult. I know Kentucky's done it a couple of times. I think Florida, when they went to the national championship, they probably did as well.
Yeah. Pat W says, lack of discipline. Bruce has got to get that turned around. Ultimately, it does fall on coaching. You got to control your players. Only so much you can do. Dan L says, toughest conference makes the toughest tournament. I agree. This tournament is going to be nuts, and I think we're going to see a completely anomalous result, because it's so tough. Auburn Dad comes back and says, War Damn Eagle, let's go. War Report fam. By the way, hit that like button, support our fellas as always. Chess Rockwell says Chad has to play against the opposing team and the refs too. If he breathes too hard, he's gonna get a whistle. I can't disagree with that.
I get that, but Mike, let's be honest, part of that is his own doing too. It's not an unfair stereotype. He has earned some of that reputation too. Not all the time, but sometimes he's earned it. And so that's the fine line we're talking about trying to navigate.
Boycott Advertising comes back and says, Chad only does it during losses. Simple answer, just win and he'll never get mad.
Yeah, blow people out and he won't be upset. There you go.
James Barnett will last comment here. I'm sorry, but the refs are responsible for fostering this atmosphere by allowing bias and double standards for one player against another. Just my opinion. Look, I think officiating has been absolutely horrid this season. And I don't care what team you root for. There's no way you're watching SEC basketball and you're saying this is high level officiating.
Oh, the ACC, what happened at Pitt Notre Dame yesterday was the most egregious call I've seen in a long time. The Big 12 has terrible officiating. So if you guys want to watch a really good officiated league, the Big East has it figured out. They've done a really good job on how they call basketball games.
Take the Big East model. Darrell Dapprich, look, I want to thank you for joining me, my friend. We're going to get to the break here, guys. Share this video on social media at The War Report using hashtag Get Your Weight Up. Like and subscribe, as always, to the YouTube channel. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at The War Report, TW Report on TikTok. Again, we're going to get to the break here. And after the break, joining me is my other good friend, Zach Blackerby from Locked On Auburn. We're going to talk more Auburn basketball right after a quick word from our sponsors.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Join our community, guys. Hit that join button. $5.99 a month will get you there. We're on the road here covering SEC basketball through the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament. You can help that work keep going by hitting that join button. You can also give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. Check your emails, people. If you interact with our channel at a high level, but you haven't made that decision to become a member, you're likely to be on the receiving end of one of these. YouTube chooses these at random. We appreciate you guys for helping us grow our Green Name gang. Also, want to thank our friends at Underdog Sports. New customers can deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Just put your entry in, pick higher or lower on two players, and bam, you have a chance to win big time cash with our friends at Underdog Sports. Download the app and use code REPORT to make sure you take advantage of all they have to offer. Also, our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, Bammers, Arkansas fans, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something to quell the tempest going on behind the scenes. Last but not least, check us out on podcast, every single podcast platform. We're there with the Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods, bringing you lots of great audio-only content. So whether you're on your way to work or to the gym or picking the kids up from school, the War Report has you covered with all your favorite Auburn content in audio-only format. Head on over to Apple, Spotify, and subscribe. Joining me for the second half of the show is Zach Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn. Zach, the man, the legend.
So good to see you.
Welcome, my friend. Good to have you on this side. We're talking Auburn basketball.
Yes.
Great times. Auburn is the best team in Auburn history, in my opinion. Right?
Sure.
Best regular season. This should be the number one overall seed.
Yes.
But the job is not done. They've got to head to Nashville. I just talked to Darrell Dapprich about what they have to do. We both agree they got to get out of Friday. I think it's necessary to win on Friday and get to Saturday. They should be the number one overall seed. Darrell seems to think that Auburn is in Lexington, whether they're the number one overall seed or the number two overall seed. My question to you is simple, right? What does Auburn have to do? What do you want to see from Auburn in Nashville?
I think they've already done enough. If the goal is the number one overall seed, I think they've done enough. I think they're there. I actually did I recorded a conversation, posted on Locked On Auburn today with our Locked On College Basketball host, Isaac Shade. He thinks Auburn's in Lexington no matter what, even if they aren't the number one overall seed. If they give it to Duke, so what? Auburn's still going to get the geographical situation that they want, Lexington and then Atlanta, which is great. I think that's an exciting thing. So, I mean, obviously your goal, if you're going to Nashville, is like, let's win 3 games and let's win this thing. Let's just take home, let's find the opportunity to say, hey, this is the most historic team in Auburn basketball history. Let's just keep adding to the bullet points of everything that they've been able to do. They're certainly good enough to win it. This whole narrative that's going around right now about how the Auburn Tigers are just in this massive free fall because the last 2 games of the season, because they lost the last 2 games of the season. It's not true. It's not true. It's a narrative, but it's not true because context matters. I mean, we're acting like Auburn lost to South Carolina and Oklahoma in the last 2 games of the season. And we all know that's not what happened. They lost on the road in College Station against a team that needed it, and Auburn didn't need it. And there was just so much emotional excitement from the weekend prior. Okay, whatever. You also don't have Denver Jones. And then they lost on a last-second shot to Alabama, who I think is a top 3 team in college basketball. I know the rankings and the analytics don't say that. I think they're a great team. I think they're a great team. So to me, it's like, okay, cool, whatever. It's not like Auburn is just falling off the face of the map. I think context is important. And I think Auburn's going to be just fine against whoever they play on Friday, whether it's Ole Miss or Arkansas.
Which would you rather see? Would Arkansas be a crappy draw for Auburn on Friday? I mean, obviously, you skip the first 2 rounds, Zach. So whoever you get will have won a couple of games and will be on a little bit of a heater coming in. But Ole Miss missed day 1, right? So if they beat Arkansas, they're maybe a little bit fresher. But who would you rather see Auburn to have? It was a tough game versus Arkansas the first go around.
Yeah, I guess that's a tricky question, because if it wasn't in a SEC tournament setting, I would say Ole Miss undoubtedly. But we're looking at a situation where if it is Arkansas, it'll be their 3rd game in 3 days, and Auburn should be the freshest it's been since earlier in the season. And that's a factor in all of this, of course. So from a pure matchup standpoint, I agree with you. But through the situation of them playing 3 games in 3 days, if Arkansas were to get to that point, I think Arkansas would be at a better draw. It's hard. That's hard to do. And we've seen Auburn go on these runs before, but I don't know if Arkansas, what they finished, I think they started 0-5 and they finished 8-5, I think was how that worked out.
Yeah.
They're still like Jekyll and Hyde. I just don't think they could be on for 3 days in a row as well. So I think I'd rather play Arkansas, but I think Auburn's in a good spot if they play Ole Miss as well.
Look, you beat Ole Miss twice already this season. The first time it was a 92-82 at Ole Miss. They 30-pieced them in Neville, 106-76. If they get Ole Miss, they'd have to beat. This will be the 3rd win versus Ole Miss this season. If it's Ole Miss, they're cooked. They're the biggest frauds in the SEC in my book. I've been saying that all season. Yeah, I do not believe in Ole Miss. I think they're most likely to embarrass the conference in the tournament. They'll make it, certainly, and they're not a terrible team, but I don't know. I feel like they're frauds, and Auburn will expose them for a 3rd time if they play them.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that they're the biggest frauds in the SEC. I don't have a great counter argument for that, but I love Auburn's draw in all of this, and whether it's Arkansas or Ole Miss, I like the matchups, especially with the reason we just said for Arkansas. And then you look at the next step where it's probably going to be Tennessee or Texas A&M, and they're probably going to play each other the night before, and that's what, a 20-hour turnaround after going to war. I mean, if to beat one of those teams, you're in a battle, right? And so I think that's going to be good for the Tigers as well. So, I mean, Auburn, I think Auburn's kind of going into this as the hunter for once this season. They've been the hunted, and I mean, most people are picking Florida to win this thing or Alabama to go on a run. I've seen a few people say, hey, Tennessee over Auburn is a likely situation. I think this is the first time in a while this season where Auburn's not necessarily the hunted. I think they're the hunter. I mean, I think they even got some ammo too. I mean, Chris Beard, Ole Miss's head coach, said Florida should be the number 1 overall seed. So, okay.
He did say that.
Great. Good
okay.
You, Chris Beard.
Awesome, Chris. Maybe they'll have a fireside about it with Lane Kiffin on the patch of grass. And
just get cooked by everybody, Chris Beard. Just compliment everybody. So I don't know. I think this is a good opportunity for Auburn. I think they're in a prime spot to win the whole dang thing. And if they don't, okay, that's fine. The biggest goal here is what's still on the table, and that's going to be on the table regardless of what happens in Nashville.
Zach, you said earlier that you didn't have a good counter argument for the Ole Miss fraud statement, but I think you just made it. Chris Beard saying Florida should be number 1 overall over Auburn makes him a fraud, Zach. He is a fraud. Straight to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect any NIL money.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Kentucky's super great either.
He's Darrell Sleeper, though. He's Darrell Sleeper to make a run in the tournament. Yeah,
I would say A&M is probably my sleeper. If I had to pick a not top 4 seed, I would pick Texas A&M just because if they get past Tennessee, we'll see what happens with Auburn. But I would say Texas A&M would be my sleeper. You didn't ask, but there you go.
Well, okay, I like that. No, I like that. Give me a prediction here before we move on. How far does Auburn go in this tournament, do you think? Do you think they win a couple, go out on Saturday? What do you see for the Tigers here? We've acknowledged this is the toughest conference and the toughest year, which means this will be the toughest tournament I think that we've seen in some time. I also think that means there's a good chance that a team comes from the back of the pack to make a run versus teams that have, according to your own statements, have maybe already solidified their tournament, fate. So why not have a team come from the back of the pack? But what do you see for Auburn here?
My pick, I put it out on social media earlier. I think Auburn beats Alabama in the SEC tournament championship.
Ooh, okay.
That is my pick. Tigers go all the way. That is my pick.
A third matchup for Auburn and Alabama this season.
Everybody wants it.
Fans.
Everybody wants it.
That certainly would be a lot of fun. Look, I want to. You and I have not had a chance to talk about this, so I do want to talk about it. I talked about with Darrell in the last segment, but I did want to get your thoughts on Chad Baker-Mazara. Lots of talk about his antics and the things that
we have to talk about this.
Yes, we have to. We have to. In the post game, Joseph Goodman asked Bruce Pearl straight up, at what point does this hurt you? Right? Like, is he a liability to you? Jacob Goins, host of On the Line Sports Talk on 106.7, said, you may be better, but are you safer with Chad Baker-Mazara? A range of thoughts on this kid. Look, I think he improves your basketball team on both sides of the court. He might be one of the best two-way players in college basketball. I also think him making third team SEC is a joke.
Why?
I think he's better than that. I think he is second team or better. I just don't think. I think he's better than third team. But what do you think about this, man? What's your message to Chad Baker-Mazara about making sure that you don't give the refs the ammo they need to kick you out of a basketball game that you could help your team win and that you may lose if you're not on the court?
I think you have the conversations you need to have, whether it's Bruce Pearl, definitely it's Bruce Pearl and Chad. You got to assume Janai or some of the team leaders will have their conversations, but what needs to be said? He knows.
Yeah.
He knows. And I just think if you're Bruce Pearl or Stephen Pearl or anybody in this coaching staff or Janai Broom or anybody who's a senior, it's like, this is my last chance. This is my last ride. I think you just pray that was a wake-up call. Because he's been close and he got nailed on the last game of the regular season. And if that's when it was going to happen, okay, good. Glad it happened then and not a week from now, right? So I think if you're Bruce Pearl, you just kind of hope it's like, okay, hopefully that's the wake-up call he needed. Because it's such an interesting situation. Some of those plays that he does are inherently selfish, but he's not a selfish player.
No, he's not.
And I think you appeal to that side of who Chad Baker-Mazara is. But all of these folks saying you got to suspend him and all this, like, stop it. Get out of here. You need Chad Baker-Mazara on the floor to achieve the goals that you have placed in front of you. You need him. You need him. And so, like, there's no other option with all of this Chad Baker-Mazara discussion and chatter throughout the fan base and throughout the SEC basketball world. What conversation is there to have?
Yeah, I agree. Look, he knows. I think the point is he knows. It's how do you get him not to forget that in the moment? That's the challenge, right? Because when the blinders go on, Zach, and and you're in the heat of the moment and the game is physical and they're trying to get under your skin, almost everybody agrees. Coaches are going to instruct their players to do as much as they can without going over the line to get Chad Baker out of the basketball game and throw Auburn off. Yeah, so you've got to know it's coming. Right?
You have to do it.
Know it's coming. Yeah, I would do it if I were a coach.
And so then, and I heard you and Darrell talking about this at the end of y'all's conversation, but this is on the officiating and this is on the NCAA. If you really are there for the safety of student athletes, don't let it get to that point. The way the Oklahoma game was called was an absolute travesty. Absolute travesty. And Damian Fishback's doing he's the color announcer at the time saying like, hey, this is about to get out of hand. You got to call this tight or it's going to escalate. And then 5 minutes later, bang, it escalates because they don't punish the first offender. They punish the second offender who's retaliating for the, for the actions of the first guy. And that's sadly what Chad Baker-Mazara has to deal with. And he's going to be held to a different standard than everyone else. And he knows it. He knows it. And I'm sure Bruce, everybody's saying like, well, Bruce has got to coach that to him. I'm sure he's told him that all year long. The Yale game happened. Whatever. You got to move past it. And you got to hope that in this situation, it's not going to be as emotional as, the last game of the greatest regular season in your program's history against your rival on senior day, honoring like pretty much your whole team that's seniors. There's a lot of emotions on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's hope what happens in Nashville and what happens in Lexington and hopefully what happens in Atlanta and hopefully what happens in San Antonio. Hopefully he gets it all dialed in.
Yeah, I think Bruce Pearl masters the messaging, when he wants to. It was interesting. After the Florida loss, he said, I don't know if I did a good job explaining to my team what this game was going to mean to Florida. And Florida came in and they shot lights out. Auburn still put up over 80 points in that game, but ultimately they lost by 9. Zach, I don't think he's going to miss an opportunity on the messaging. I've seen some legendary pregame speeches from Coach Bruce Pearl since that Florida game. They're going to be motivated. They understand they have what is a rare opportunity in college basketball today. In talking to Chris Beard after the Ole Miss game, I asked him about the strength of the conference, and he said, look, man, because of NIL, we're seeing a lot of players come back to college basketball that would have been gone, and the strength of the league is the foundation of it is the talent that decided to return. Janai Broom's not here probably without a strong NIL commitment from Auburn for this last year. Right. And, they have a chance maybe to return a lot of seniors for one more year next year and have an even better run next year.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not quite sold they're going to be better yet, but it's fun to dream, right? But the overall quality of college basketball is going to get better because, I know there's all the jokes about how old Auburn's roster is. The facts are Auburn is the 25th oldest team in college basketball. So there's still several in this league that are older. I think Tennessee is, A&M might be, but I think they're third oldest in the SEC. But I think that's going to be the norm, especially with the JUCO rules. I think there's going to be players that might fringe on, like, if you're not going to be an NBA guy, from an NIL standpoint, it makes more sense for you to go to JUCO and then transfer into college basketball as a guy 2 years removed from high school and get paid, and you get paid for 4 years. And you're going to essentially be on, it's not NBA minimum money, but it's some G League money, and you get to ride that situation for 4 years, which is a dang good living. Everybody's hating on how old Chad is and needs to get a job or whatever. Odds are he's making more money than you. Yeah. And I'm not ever going to fault anybody for getting their money, especially when they're doing it the right way.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of kids being able to stay in school and make money rather than get lost in the D League or chase the pros when they probably have no shot. Like, look, at the end of the day, we know that there are going to be some really good college basketball players that will not go on to have pro careers. Right. It's just a fact. Why not give them an opportunity to stay in college as long as possible and improve that product while simultaneously
they benefit, the college basketball benefits, the university benefits, the conference benefits, the local community benefits. There's no downside to this, except for when you look at the high school situation and the way high school kids are going to be recruited now. And we've seen this at Auburn for some, like the last few years. Auburn's been pretty picky when it comes to getting guys from the high school ranks. And I think you're going to see less and less big programs sign these fringe 3-stars, which I think is interesting. Like long-term, does a Dylan Cardwell sign with an Auburn? A guy who was just kind of this fringe player. And then obviously he developed into what he's developed into. But I do think you're going to see high school recruiting take a hit, not for the elite guys, but for that next tier. I think it's going to be tougher for them to get offers from top programs. Yeah,
look, Tahad Pettiford is getting picked up no matter what, right? Yeah. I agree with you. But, like, if you are 2 steps below Tahad, you're right. A lot of programs will not have to take a chance on that 3-star kid when they can go get a Janai Broome who's already developed some at the college level. Now you'll see those kids, I think, maybe go to other programs in lesser conferences, and then those conferences become a farm system for the power.
Yeah, there's going to be feeder schools, right? Yeah. Morehead State, which is where Janai Broome came from. Chad Baker-Mazara hopped around. You got, Auburn's got guys from, smaller schools in Florida. Georgia Tech doesn't really fit this example when you look at Miles. North Alabama, I mean, they're from all over the place. And I think that's the new model. I think that's the new future of roster building and roster management at the P4, the high P4 level in college basketball.
Can you imagine an official feeder school partnership between Auburn and Morehead State? They're just like, hey, look, you're not quite good enough to get in here, but go to Morehead and we'll come get you in 2 years.
Wouldn't that be fascinating? Yeah, if there was a guy that somebody kind of kept. I mean, I don't think it'll ever officially happen, but I do wonder if relationship form. It's like, hey, we want you, but we can't get you. There's no space for you right now. Go to here or whatever. Maybe it's a coach that they have a relationship with. Go hang out with them, play for them for a year, develop, and then enter the portal, and we'll get you when a roster spot opens up. I'm sure those conversations are happening, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, coaching is a tight fraternity. They talk about players, they talk about job openings. Look, and there's a lot of solidarity at those ranks. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that happen. Zach, I want to close the show talking about Janai Broome. I felt like in the Alabama game, he locked up National Player of the Year, 15 of 28 from the field, 34 points.
Wow.
Big threes down the stretch, to keep Auburn in it. And me thinking, hey, we need a Miles Kelly 3, and Janai Broome steps up and hits the 3. It's a 3, 2 huge ones. I think he's the National Player of the Year. I think who he did it against has to matter. I think coming back from injury to continue to put up the numbers should be factored in. When he got injured, a lot of people were already writing him off because of the injury and saying, look, if he had not got injured, he probably would have won it. Well, he came back against Tennessee and carried Auburn to a win on one leg. This guy's the National Player of the Year. I don't think it should be.
But that's not what voters look at. Voters aren't able to I don't think the average voter is watching the games, Mike. I don't think the average voter was watching a game where Janai Broome is getting battled and not getting the calls that other people. It is a problem, but I don't really know what the solution is. You can't say, hey, you've got to watch every game to be a voter. Maybe you can. I don't think. I don't know.
They watched that Alabama game though, Zach. They watched him drop 34 points on better than 50% shooting.
I guess so, but what did Cooper do against North Carolina? I assume his stats were similar. Am I off on that?
Yeah,
and it just seems so. Yeah, it just seems so.
Alabama.
Look, I want Cooper. I want Cooper Flag nowhere near the National Player of the Year award, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I'm pulling for Janai Broome. I think Janai Broome deserves it. I agree with everything you're saying. I just don't think it's going to happen. I said it a few weeks ago. If it's close, Mike, if it's a close race, Cooper Flag gets it. And for all the reasons that are stupid, that don't make any sense. The Athletic put out they had their panel and they're had a debate and each person kind of wrote a quick blurb on why. And for Cooper, a lot of them were similar. And some of the first things they mentioned was his age and how young and how he's a riser and all of that stuff, but shouldn't ever matter. When has that ever mattered?
Mattered, yeah.
And then the other one is, and he's going to be the first overall pick. Janai Broome's not even a first round pick. Probably he's definitely not a lottery pick. And it's when has that ever mattered? Ever? If the first pick overall is the main criteria, if we're just going to let the worst NBA team or the NBA team that wins the lottery decide it, let's just wait. Hand them the hat that's for the Utah Jazz or whatever, and then say, and also here's your National Player of the Year trophy. But no, everyone's like, well, no, that's ridiculous. Yeah, that is ridiculous. So you shouldn't use it as an argument.
Yeah, I agree. Look, man, I get why you're saying it won't happen. My brain, my heart just prays against it every single day. I rebuke that in the name of everything that is right in the world. Janai Broome, do what's right. AP voters, I don't know if any of them are watching this show. I know a couple that do. Like, do the right thing. I mean,
here's
you're not
the
watch
crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing. Both you and me separately, one-on-one, played as many ranked opponents as Duke did in conference play.
Yeah.
Way to go, Cooper Flag.
Yeah, come on, man. Look, we're not saying I don't want anybody to hear that we're not saying that Cooper Flag is a great player. I think he's going to be a good player. I just think in the conversation of National Player of the Year in today's college basketball, who you play has to matter. And Janai Broome has done it against much tougher competition. Zach, I want to thank you for joining me. Let's get to some comments here before we get out of here.
Yes.
I know you guys love seeing Zach Blackerby over here on the midweek.
Survivors on tonight.
TK says Flag had 15 points against UNC.
Who cares, TK? No, I'm joking. TK, I asked. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Chess Rockwell says, watch it, Zach. Flag's mom may curse you out. Is she on social media cursing people out? Is that a thing?
Is she? I had somebody with last name Broom saying bad stuff to me a few shows ago. So I don't know. Maybe that's a thing.
Devin 21, I appreciate her. Love what Dap said. It's the refs that need to be talked to, not Chad Baker-Mazara. It's time for them to do their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Protect the student athletes. Either actually do it or quit saying that's your job.
Yep, I agree. Auburn most likely wins the SEC tournament judged on their neutral court games. They've been awesome on a neutral. I mean, lost a neutral court game this year.
Yeah, it's just all of them were so long ago. Seems like an eternity ago. So is that still relevant? I don't know.
Yeah. I think given what they did on the road in the SEC, it is relevant, but that's just me. TK, we're about to see a great Auburn team. They've heard enough, I'm sure. Listen, they're listening to the noise on social media. I see them responding to a lot of things. Ben Blower says 3-0 versus Ole Miss would be hilarious. We love to hate Ole Miss here. We love it. We wish nothing but bad things for them.
Probably the most likely option as well.
Devin 21 says, and also I'm sick of people acting like Chad Baker-Mazara gets a tech every other game. He's had 3 out of 33 games, so let's chill with the garbage.
Still a lot, but you're right, Devin. I agree. We're acting like he's punching somebody in the face every time he goes out there, and that's not true.
Yeah,
and honestly, the other 2 techs, one was against Oklahoma, which I think was poorly officiated. The officials let it get to that point. Should Chad have retaliated? I don't know, but what was done to him in the first place, I think, was worse than that. What was the other game? I'm blanking.
Yeah, I'm blanking. Devin, if you
let us know in the chat. Yeah, then like what he did on Saturday was bad. Like absolutely needed to be, he
deserved it
in the game. Yeah, Oklahoma. I was like, and I'm blanking on the other one.
All right, Chad Baker-Mazara
has a tech. He had a tech at Bama. That was the other one. I don't really remember that.
I don't remember that one either. So it never. You don't remember?
He was falling out of bounds. Under the basket. That one wasn't. I thought that was a little. Thought that was a little soft too. So,
James Barnett, member for 49 months. Thank you.
49 months.
49.
Way to go,
months.
James.
Wow. That is like 4 years. That's crazy.
Like 10 years.
Fellas,
like 12 years.
How do we know how good Flag is? The ACC has 3 ranked teams, and no one of them beat Duke. Will Flag have the same number in the SEC? Yeah, I agree.
No,
yeah, I think they're historically bad.
Yes,
yeah. Auburn dad, also a member for 49 months.
49 months.
Yeah, the 49
That's
is a good number.
Insane. The loyalty, I love it.
War Damn Eagle, he loves the Mike G Zach combo. You can get this over at Locked On Auburn as well too. So
we talk all the time. All the time. We're boys with a Z on the end.
Oh, the Z is my girlfriend's mocking us in the background. Chess, member for 48 months. 48 months of membership, man. These are lifetime members here.
That's like 9 years.
Yeah. Clearly, they are vets. You guys are. TK says BP will handle it, and he won't stifle Chad's personality. It's who he is. I want Chad to be himself. He's been great this season. Literally lost it because he was getting beat on by Youngblood. I think Youngblood.
They kept going to review it, and they knew it was happening. That he's getting elbowed in the back, and they just didn't really seem to care. Once again, The way he responded was not correct. But if the true goal for the officials is to protect student athletes, you have to do something to stop it. And they haven't done that up to this point.
Yeah. Officiating historically bad. Every time it's tweeted at Greg Sankey, I hope he takes note. He has been active on social media the last few days, showing people his notes apparently. But look, Greg Sankey, do something.
Who else has been a member for a certain amount of months? Can we put them up on the screen?
Oh man, listen, you guys, I don't even know how YouTube does that. But man, this is actually incredible. Thank you guys so much for your membership. James Barnett says, at Zach, you are spot on. That's what I've been saying the entire time. The refs are fostering this environment, and people jumped on me like I was wrong. They can set the game from the beginning.
Right. Right. And they can say whatever they want, but actions speak louder than words. And whenever they want to have a quick whistle, is one thing, but it's just weird when sometimes they don't want to have a quick whistle. And it's remarkably inconsistent. And I'll say it again. Your job, you're saying, is to protect student athletes, and you're not doing it.
Yeah. Jerome T. Marshall has been a member for 47 months. He says he's 2 months behind. Build a time machine, go forward in time, and make those months up.
But man, as soon as he realized what was cooking over at the War Report, he's like, I got to get in on this. 47 months is crazy. That's awesome.
It is crazy.
That's like older than my children are.
Lots of great support. Hard to believe we've been at it for that long. Chess Rockwell says, I don't care how old you are. If you're continuously being treated unfairly and taking a physical beating, you will react at some point. I agree with that one. And I think
what
that goes back to
old man strength. Old man, all these 18-year-olds are elbowing Chad Baker-Mazara in the back. And at some point, it's just like, I'm older, I'm wiser, I'm stronger. No, I'm joking.
James Barnett, Chad Baker-Mazara had 4 techs in 31 games. People act like he's getting thrown out of every game. There are other players throughout the NCAA that has way more, but we don't hear about it. Shaking my head. Look, when you're on a team that is as good as Auburn, you're going to get the microscope, and they're going to hear about yours. And that's that. So they've just got to figure out how to not make it an issue for the next 8 games.
Mike, one of my favorite things to say, and I say a lot of stuff, I talk a ton, but one of my favorite is pressure is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. And Auburn has created this pressure of being, the hunted for most of the season, for being the number 1 team for most of the season, which is hard to do, especially in this year's version of the SEC. That's what goes on with this, James. There's more pressure on Chad Baker-Mazara than other guys who have the same or close amount, or maybe even more amount of techs. Is the pressure's on Auburn, the pressure's on Chad Baker-Mazara, and that's what makes these guys special. They thrive. Yeah. They thrive in the pressure. Pressure is a privilege, and we'll see how these guys respond over the next few weeks.
Yeah. James Barnett says, I think once a month YouTube allows the milestone chat. Thank you for that. All right.
Is there somebody that's only been here for like a month or 2?
I don't know, but Marcus Holland has been here for 47 months.
47 months.
That said, he's loving every minute of it. We appreciate him. Going to end on this one. Bring back this duo of Zach and Mike. Looking forward to having my good friend Zach Blacker be over with me more often here on the War Report. Great show, Zach. I want to thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Yes, Locked on Auburn, available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Yeah, we post a lot over there.
They do post a lot. I think they're the only other channel that posts more. So please go check them out and support what they're doing over there at Locked on Auburn. Great partners with the War Report. Guys, share this video on social media at the War Report and use hashtag Get Your Weight Up. Like and subscribe as always. Help us continue to build our community.
Can I show a new Auburn basketball shirt I just got in the mail?
You can.
You mind if I show you? I almost wore it, but I ran out of time. My kid wouldn't fall asleep. Little Call God action.
No way.
Call God. Yeah.
Is that
cool?
licensed? Is that licensed?
It's from Breaking Tea. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I need one. Zach, I need
Check
one.
it out. Well,
Call God. Wait. Yeah. Yeah, let me know. We're going to drop the link for that on Twitter. But wow, I love that t-shirt. And speaking of Twitter, follow us on Twitter, X and Instagram. We had our ads up at Mike Giddens, at Zach Blackerby, and at The War Report on X and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. Guys, that's it for another great edition of the midweek report. Sign up as a member if you didn't have a green name. This is how you do it. Hit that join button. Also, remember to follow us on podcast, every single podcast platform. Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods. Whether you're on Apple or Spotify or Amazon, we are there. So on your way to the gym, work, picking up the kids, listen to the War Report. We appreciate you guys for joining our community. That's it. We're out. And as always, War Eagle. Peace.